Now going to question 14, we always start with the prompt first, and here the prompt is telling us that this is a grammar question. So let's start reading. In her analysis of this work, this scholar observes that the novel depicts the upper classes of New York society as consumed by the appetite of a soulless materialism, an apt assessment, given that the work is set during the Gilded Age, a period marked by rapid industrialization, economic greed, and widening wealth disparities. So, to understand this better, we need to quickly talk about what is a clause and what's a modifier. So, a clause is something with a subject and a verb. For instance, John jumped. A dependent clause, by the way, would have both of those things, but also a weak conjunction at the front. Instead of just John jumped, since John jumped. And because of the word since, you can't put a period after that part, after since John jumped. A modifier, on the other hand, is missing the subject, the verb, or both. So, for instance, the yellow part, while jumping. ING words are not verbs, and there's no mention of John or he there. While jumping, John twisted his ankle. The independent clause is John twisted his ankle. The modifier is while jumping. You could also have the modifier right in the middle. John, while jumping, twisted his ankle. Or you could have it at the end. John jumped, twisting his ankle in the process. So a modifier, something that's missing the subject, the verb, or both, is a part of a sentence that is separate from the independent clause. It's a little something that gets tacked on like a post-it note to whatever you're writing. And that's exactly what's happening here. Here, the scholar, Wade, observes that the novel depicts the upper classes in a certain way. Then the next part says, an apt assessment, given that it's set during the Gilded Age. So technically, the part I just underlined does have a subject and a verb. It has the work, the house of mirth, is, which is a verb. But for subject-verb combinations that make a sentence a clause, they need to be in that beginning part of the sentence. For instance, if this part here said, this was an apt assessment, given that the work is set during the Gilded Age, that would be a clause. But if it just starts with an apt assessment, as opposed to this was an apt assessment, it's a modifier. So right here, you have one modifier. And in the next part, a period marked by rapid industrialization, greed, and widening wealth disparities. Once again, it's missing the subject-verb combination that would make it a clause. If the part I just underlined in red said, this was a period marked by industrialization, greed, and wealth disparities, that would be a clause. But if I just say a period marked by this, the period is a noun and marked is a verb, but we're still missing the primary subject-verb combination in the sentence, which kind of needs to start the sentence generally. So what we have here is, let's go ahead and just delete a couple things. We have the independent clause in blue. Then we have a modifier in purple. And we have another modifier in orange. And that's okay, because modifiers can be attached to a sentence by commas, and you are allowed to have more than one modifier in a row. So that's the structure of our sentence. And the way it reads here is exactly right. And the way it reads without adding any words is right, which would be C. She observes people as consumed by materialism, an apt assessment, given that it was set in the Gilded Age, a period marked by all these things. By the way, for a semicolon, you need two independent clauses, and the second part is definitely not independent. B is wrong because it would have the wrong meaning. If I just put and, I'm kind of saying this is going on and that is going on, which just doesn't make sense in this case. And D actually changes the meaning. Consumed by materialism and apt assessment. If there's not a pause there, it's kind of saying that there's some further relationship between the materialism and the assessment that's not really there. So the answer choice that works here is C.